Hello, friends. Welcome to another Cove Ocean Connector. Our Ocean Connector series has been part of the local ecosystem of events for over 7 years now, even long before construction wrapped up here at Cove. Today is actually our 74th Ocean Connector. Before I jump in and introduce our amazing guests we have today, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our Ocean Connector sponsors, Cox and Palmer Law Firm and Killam Properties. For those watching from outside of Nova Scotia, these two organizations are leaders in law and real estate here in Halifax, and we're proud to have their support for Cove Ocean Connector. Additionally, I would like to thank our founding sponsor here at Cove, Irving Shipbuilding. We've assembled this really great panel here today. Before I introduce them, I'll introduce myself. For those that don't know me, my name is Kyle Burton. I'm the Client Engagement Manager here at Cove, and I have the pleasure to lead today's discussion with these four people. Collectively, our guests represent some of the foremost leading minds in the global blue economy, from industry, government, and innovation support. They're making all waves across all of North America. One final housekeeping item before we begin. We're live streaming right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you're joining on any of those platforms and you want to ask a question to the panelists, please leave your comment in the comment section with your question, and we'll do our best to answer those live. If you don't have access to an account on any of those platforms, please send us a note at info@coveocean.com, and I will interject those into the conversation at the appropriate time. So let's give our viewers today an opportunity to get to know each of the panelists. Starting with Greg, can you introduce yourself, your role in the organization you work with?
Sure, Kyle. Thanks for organizing this panel. It's great to be with everybody. For those in the audience, I'm Greg Murphy. I'm Director of Corporate Development and Strategic Partnerships for a company called Blue Nalu. We're based in San Diego, and we're at the forefront of developing cell-cultured seafood products, which is a brand new way of producing seafood to meet consumer demand.
Thanks, Greg. Anne, how about yourself and Braid Theory?
Okay, so I'm Ann Carpenter, CEO of Braid Theory. We are a private firm, a vertically integrated advisory firm that we focus on supporting entrepreneurs that are engineering and science-led teams focused on every aspect around blue economy. And we really work with all of the fields, ports and transportation and goods movement, or water and energy, clean tech, to really see how they all coalesce around blue economy solutions.
Thanks, Ann. Andres,
Sure.
You have a unique background. Can you share more on that, please?
Yeah, so hi, everybody. My name is Andres Campos. I'm from Baja, Mexico. I am the director of the Economic Development Corporation here in Ensenada, so my job is to bring investment into the city. But I'm also one of the co-founders for the Baja Blue Tech Innovation Cluster. So I'm pretty much one of the first people in Mexico to kind of try to gather the triple helix to look towards the blue economy. So it's exciting to be here, and thank you very much.
And if I'm not mistaken, you just recently opened up a new restaurant as well.
Yeah, I have a couple of restaurants, a couple other businesses, so I try to keep busy. So it's part of the job. Yeah.
Nice. And Joshua, you've had some recent professional news that's really exciting. Can you tell us more about that? And then Maritime Blue?
Yeah. Hey, Kyle. Thank you. Really excited about joining this panel. Old friends, so it's exciting. I'm finishing up my first week here as full-time president and CEO of Washington Maritime Blue. It's a nonprofit organization who's kind of following the Andres mentioned kind of triple helix, quadruple helix approach to helping to accelerate innovation in maritime and ocean economies. The organization spun out of the Washington State Department of Commerce. I spent the last 5 years as Governor Jay Inslee's maritime sector lead, so having both a policy and economic development role for the state of Washington. And as we completed our state strategy for the blue economy, we spun out this independent organization whose mission it is to actually implement it. And now I've moved over full time.
Nice. And that's recent, just in the last week or so, correct?
Yeah, just finishing my first week.
Nice.
I carry one cell phone now. It's really life-changing.
Nice. There you go. And let's start the discussion today with an overview of some of the work you're doing right now with Canadian companies, because I know the program you're part of is very compelling, and you're working to connect Southern California market interest with ocean tech companies here in Nova Scotia and across Canada.
Yeah, so connect them with Southern California all the way down through and including Baja. So Andres, this program, I definitely want to connect with you more on opportunities. So basically the program was conceived through the trade commissioner and Canadian consulate in San Diego. So Mario Diaz, he and I had been talking a lot about just sort of how you really go beyond the standard role of a trade commission to do that kind of business to business market matching and really take advantage of the opportunities that are going on in accelerators and incubators throughout Canada around related to blue economy. And then how do we make that better, deeper connection to get these companies into and connected like a soft landing pad into the Southern California and regional market? So the program is really kind of a hybrid program because, first of all, it's not just for startups, right? The application process was to look for companies that were at enough of that were more either in that scale-up stage or were even existing SMEs, small, medium enterprises that we're looking at, they had something new or some unique product or service or approach where they thought they really were looking to make traction into Southern California. And of course, all related to ocean blue tech sector. So the program is called the Ocean Tech Market Readiness Program, and it incorporates some of those accelerator activities around customer discovery and product market fit and business model and all of these things that you're going through with an accelerator program, but focused on the role of like, how do you address the Southern California market, right? So look at what you're doing through that lens. So it's a virtual program. We started with a deep dive on what the opportunities were here in Southern California so we could really give some good market intelligence to the companies that are participating. And now we start a series of review sessions and pitch practice sessions and deep analysis connections with mentors and other stakeholders. And away we go. So yeah, we're really excited about it. It's a great group of companies. Some are on the data side. We've got companies that are naval architects that are doing work in hydrogen, hydrogen fuel cell, boats, and it just runs the gamut. So we're super excited. And the other thing that was super interesting, though, is with the Canadian government, we actually brought multiple agencies. So it was the ACOA, Atlantic Canada based, NSBI, Nova Scotia, as well as West Coast, ABC, Maritime Industries, as well as the consulates. So it was a multi-agency. It took a while to get it all coalesced, but we're super excited.
Nice. I know speaking with some of the companies, they're very excited about it as well. And it seems kind of like the key theme in most of this is around collaboration and working together, new partnerships. Building off of that, your neighbor next door, Andres, I know some of the work you're doing in the Baja region is focused on collaboration. So how important is it for like various blue tech cities and regions to foster that environment that promotes collaboration?
Sorry. Yeah. So I think it's very important. I think specifically in the blue economy world where everything is very, very new, the opportunities are just popping up. I think there's a better opportunity to collaborate. And I think we showed it. We've been meeting, the blue tech world is pretty small still. So that's the reason why I know everybody here in the panel, because we've met either in London and Paris and Seattle and, in Halifax. So I think the collaboration aspect of it is the most important thing. One thing that I've noticed worldwide is, and it's very encouraging, is that most of the regions have very similar needs. We're in very similar steps, and it's pretty cool to be able to connect with everybody. And that's basically what we're doing here. We're pretty much working right now at a local level. We're kind of doing an assessment and a survey of what our needs and capacities are in the industry here in Baja. And when I'm talking about Baja, it's important to know that most of the Baja companies are foreign companies. We have some of the largest aquaculture farms in the world, and they're American companies here in Baja too. So, and it's basically just trying to figure out what they need, and make them figure out what they need, and try to match them with industry innovators, with academia. So it's been pretty interesting. I think the geopolitical atmosphere right now is challenging, but it's opening up a lot of opportunities for collaboration. Even more so now that at a political level it's pretty hard. I think at the operational level it's becoming a little bit easier.
Thank you. Building off of that, Joshua, as a person in your role, you're helping build an innovation ecosystem. How can folks such as yourself work together to better support each other?
Well, thank you, Kyle. I think been having this conversation with a number of folks. It's the idea about being better together is really true in terms of and how Andres was explaining it. It's nascent enough that the growth of the blue economy broadly is going to support all of our work, right? I've been adhering to the term coopetition, and that takes place both kind of internally to our cluster, 115 members. They are cooperating and competing every day, and often side by side at the same time. It's the same thing as the innovation ecosystem grows, right? We're all kind of supporting one another, see the value of the growth of the economy globally. And there's just still a lot for us to learn. So, some of the big conversations we've been having is, like, how do we measure impact, right? I think we're all look that there are lots of different types of dollars to support accelerating this work. Some of that are kind of impact dollars or impact investment, but how do we measure that in the blue economy? Are we all using the same standard? Can we all go to the broader impact investment community and share kind of the impacts that our projects and our entrepreneurs are starting to meet? And, likewise, in terms of capital, there's a lot of folks and a lot of capital flowing around out there. Not many of them have the full understanding of the opportunities in the blue economy. So collectively, we're educating capital, of course, to come look at our companies and our projects, but we're educating them on where the opportunities are. And sometimes it needs to look a little bit different in different sectors. But those are great ways in which, Anne and Greg and Andreas and our friends in Norway and Singapore and Dubai are all kind of working to help kind of, I think all maritime puns are appropriate at all times, but raise the hull of all ships in that way.
Thanks, Joshua. Greg, cluster building exercises and partnership initiatives were a large focus of your previous role when you were at the Maritime Alliance. Now with Blue Nalu, which is a company that's growing quite rapidly, do the core principles of collaboration hold up in the real world? Are companies prioritizing those values?
Kyle, absolutely, and we're all operating in the same swim lane here of sustainability. Trying to build something for a better future. So the real world is upon us, and we have to respond accordingly. But you're absolutely right. So, just like Joshua, Andres, and yourself there in Halifax and others around the world are collaborating as blue tech clusters. Now that I've jumped ship, another maritime pun, from the Maritime Alliance to Blue Nalu, similar thing is true in the food tech space as well. There's a lot of collaboration on finding new innovative technologies, on making and developing new markets, on educating consumers and policymakers and others within industry to understand what does the future of food look like. And from Blue Nalu's perspective, we're working on some pretty innovative technology, literally producing real seafood directly from fish cells without having to grow the whole animal. So we're just growing the 100% yielded fillet or muscle of a fish that consumers would want to eat. And because it's made from fish cells, it tastes the same, has the same nutritional qualities, the same DNA. It is real seafood. It's just the third option to complement wild caught and farm raised. And a lot of folks around the world recognize the opportunity in that, but we don't have all the answers. And so our model is to partner with the seafood industry, to partner with investors from around the world, not only on identifying which species to work on, but how do we actually get our product to markets around the world. So various seafood processing, seafood distribution, seafood marketing, and sales organizations. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Nutreco is the world's largest supplier of aquaculture feed, and they're one of our investors. They're one of our partners on supply chain. Similarly, Rich Products owns Moray Seafood and CPAC here, CPG brand here in the United States, North America. And they're also one of our investors and partners too. And then out of Asia, a company called Sumitomo out of Japan, Powan out of Korea, and as well as Griffith Foods here in the United States on food production, on product development. So, in the cluster world, as well as in the innovative entrepreneur startup world, it's all about the partnerships.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a common theme across blue economies all over the world, by the sounds of things. Back to you, Joshua. You're in a new role. You're working diligently to build the brand of Washington State as a blue tech hub. What are you most excited about in your new role?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I mean, it feels, been doing this work already for, 5+ years, and I've moved over as board chair over into the staff role. So, it's new in a sense in that I get to just wear a single hat, which is a bit freeing in lots of ways. And I think what I'm most excited about is finding opportunities. The way our cluster organization works, we have kind of a number of different lanes in which we operate. We are supporting entrepreneurs through accelerator and incubator programs around the region in this kind of hub and spoke model. We have a significant amount of work we do around workforce development, particularly in how we support youth of color and young women into the maritime industry. We hold knowledge forums and we do business development work with our members and the like. We also took a significant amount of cues from our friends in Norway in running large demonstration projects. We call them joint innovation projects, or JIPs. And that's where our members come together. Sometimes we identify a problem and say, hey, these 6 members, if you came together, we went out and fundraised to do a project, run a feasibility study, build something, whatever it might be, we could help solve this problem. Sometimes our members come to us and say, hey, I've got a concept for this thing, the zero emission foil ferry. Can you help us bring together the whole value chain from the regulatory to funding to the supply chain to build the vessel and put it together as a whole kind of packaged project? And then we can uniquely bring in federal dollars, local contract dollars, local investment, layer those dollars and help move that project forward. What I'm excited about all those things. What I'm particularly excited about right now is we're starting to see the threads across them, right? We're starting to see where our entrepreneurs and our founders and startups can fill some gaps in some projects that are starting to develop, or ways in which a larger project can support an ecosystem for our entrepreneurs. We're starting to see our youth and our youth development programs starting to find internship opportunities with our startup companies, right? And certainly our larger employers as well. So we're starting to really start to see the threads within our own sort of vertical, so to speak. And I'm excited as that continues to grow and we build actually some even further capacity to do that work.
Nice, sounds exciting. Anne, looking at your bio, it's clear to see that you spent a great career helping organizations with strategy and helping them to develop new business initiatives. Looking at the blue economy, how has the blue tech innovation scene kind of changed in the last 5 years? And then building off of that, what do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10?
Just a simple question. Okay, so let me get my crystal ball. So looking at the past, and things of where the blue economy sector and blue tech has come in the last 5 years. I did an analysis. So you mentioned, like, we were talking offline where Joshua and I first met when I was with a nonprofit incubator called Port Tech. And so that was, back 5-ish plus years ago. There, nobody even coined the term blue economy, blue tech, right? It was Port Tech, and it was very focused on sort of the clean tech sector applied to ports. So it was a very narrow focus on helping ports become cleaner, greener, more efficient. You started getting, from aquaculture and various, efficiencies in that area. Then you start getting the sense of going, well, wait a minute. What if we kind of look at this broader multi-sector, cross-sector initiative and call it blue economy? And that crosses over from, deep space to research, to defense, to tourism, to food, to energy, to clean tech. And you start saying, well, wait a minute, this is all multi-sector. What we're looking for is transformative technologies and solutions that are solving really big, hairy problems that we're facing in the world around energy and food security and climate change and all of these things, right? So if I look at what is important moving into the future, it's not about CRISPR or blockchain, or it's not about the technology. It's about this sort of cross-sector systems thinking to solve these big problems. And it could be technology solutions, but it's also things like what you just mentioned, Joshua, about these joint innovation projects. It's thinking, how do we bring all these disparate pieces together to move forward? I mean, even the way we named our company Braid Theory is this idea of braids being strategic partnerships that come together to solve problems. And the other thing in terms of something that we look at is that entrepreneurial thinking about looking for the gaps and solving for those gaps, right? So this is, I mean, if I just think across my career, being in, corporate think, you never looked outside, except for maybe a supplier or a buyer or this or that. You didn't think that way. More and more so, what is so exciting, whether it's thinking about impact investors crossing from nonprofit to more supporting for-profit solutions, government, public-private partnerships, all of this together is what actually, gets me up in the morning to really, fired up to think about it. Because, and then as crazy as pandemic has been, the fact that we are now all doing this remotely, like having this conversation here, really accelerates the ability to solve those problems, right? Because the other thing that is a common thread around ocean solutions is it very quickly transcends local economy. Everything, Andres, you brought that up. Joshua, we're working together. Obviously, Greg, when you're looking at food across and suppliers, is the sense if any company is working in this space, they're a global company. They're a global solution. And so you can't hold on tightly as just this local thinking. So so that's my prediction for the future, that we're really going to keep accelerating that systems thinking and we'll never go back.
Interesting. That's a great way to think about it, Anne. And Andres, are you kind of seeing the same mentality and the same thinking in your region? Oops, sorry.
There you go. Don't worry. Yes, I think that I think we were a little bit behind, the U.S. and the Canadian efforts. But I think for me, I'm coming at it not from the ocean world. I'm an economic developer. My job is to bring investment, and my true passion for the blue economy comes from, educating people on the ocean. And when Anne, you mentioned that you transcend local markets really fast, and I do think that it is because it is one ocean. It is one ocean covering the whole world. So one solution for one part of the ocean must apply for somewhere else. So what we're doing right now is actually trying to increase the attention towards the ocean. And it's mostly, I mean, we have a very centralized government in Mexico. The federal government really has all the power on anything ocean related. So we're slowly working towards, policymakers in the center of Mexico understanding, what the blue economy is and how it is important for Mexico. And it's simply because I was thinking about this yesterday. Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. are some of the few countries in the world that have access to two oceans. I mean, we have a very high responsibility of increasing awareness and interest. So what we've been looking at is that there's been, in the last five years, there's been an impressive increase on ocean literacy. And it's been a very, I mean, in Paris, we talked about this a little bit on how the UN was increasing their budget and their programs for ocean literacy. But honestly, we've looked at it, and it's mostly local young people focused on increasing ocean literacy, and it's been very exciting to see that. For example, there's a huge Latin American ocean literacy account, like an Instagram account, and they're producing content every day. And surprisingly, it's based out of Ensenada, and we did not know this. And it was somebody who contacted us, and it was like, hey, I contacted them, and they're like, I love your content. It's amazing. We need this here in Ensenada. And they came back and like, yeah, we're in Ensenada. I'm like, wow, okay. So it's been constantly getting contacted by innovators, by companies already here in Ensenada telling me that they're doing ocean-related stuff. And it's been really exciting that we've actually been contacted by very large multinational companies that have traditionally nothing to do in the blue space, and they're looking very heavily and investing very heavily into the blue economy. So I think for us, one thing I'm going to say, and I think it was mentioned before, the resources, the finance behind blue economy, I think the money is there. I mean, there's a lot of money just trying to find innovative and exciting projects. But we need to work here in Ensenada and Mexico in general, is to get innovation projects market ready and finance ready. So Greg, you did an amazing job at TMA, and we've been looking at the Blue Tech Week you helped organize for so many years, and that investment seminar at the end of the week. It's been amazing, and it's opened our eyes, and we got a lot of attention. Now our job as the Ocean Tech Innovation Cluster is to kind of organize everything that's already laid out. And we've been doing so. Actually, Joshua, we've been using a lot of your models in Washington. So kind of to organize and departmentalize, the cluster and the blue economy here in Ensenada. So we're trying to build something that is a mix of, the Cove, which is one of the most amazing spaces I've ever seen, I've ever visited. It's so encouraging. Washington, the blue effort, and TMA, which is for me one of the spearheads in blue tech and in the world. So, I mean, we're fortunate enough that it's fairly close by. I mean, even Halifax is only, a flight away. So, I think that issues and the problems that the industry are facing right now are very simple in a way. And I think that tech can, help solve all those across the board. So it's been very amazing and impressive. And actually the whole pandemic, which it's just the worst time in human history, but it's been helpful in a way that we can connect even better and easier. So I've been excited about that, and I appreciate this. Yeah.
Yeah, Andres, can I add something to that? One thing that I think about also, as I talk about this, like this whole big, global view, what is so interesting is local economies will win as well. They're not mutually exclusive. Joshua and I have this conversation a lot because the economic development, job creation, that was part of our goal when I was at Port Tech. And it's also part of the goal of our partnership with AltaSea, which is place-based, right? But, it doesn't mean that you hold on tightly to the startups that say it's only about economic development. Because you mentioned, you have multinational corporations who are looking what their role is. You have suppliers, you have implementation projects that become local. All these different layers that if you just let the systems happen and take the best of what Joshua's building, what Kyle's building, what TMA did, and has been doing for a couple of decades, right, Michael, and is that puts that layer that says, how do we look at this global activity and take advantage to build our local job creation, economic development? Where do we build and focus on? And the clusters vary. Like there's things you can do in aquaculture in Baja that we can't get permitting in California. That's part of why we'll be talking more with these companies that are coming from Canada, because they may only be able to implement in Mexico and not in California. So, yeah.
We've been thinking about that a lot as well. One of the contexts in which we've been thinking about that recently is we have a lot of local economic development organizations, statewide and local, that are supporting our accelerator and incubator programs, right? And the idea is that we're helping to grow this ecosystem in Seattle, King County, and Tacoma, other communities around the state of Washington. And of course, their goals are, right, jobs and capital investment, right, in that region. And so there's a tension there between, well, are we supporting companies that are here, right here in this region, or are we going to bring in companies from around the globe and support their work, especially in a virtual environment, right? So now, for our 4-month program, they're not flying in from Florida, but they're zooming in from Montreal, right, or other places. And so we have to think about it as a little bit kind of in the long game, so to speak. Like, yes, we want to create jobs and bring capital investment to our communities. We also want our capital from our region to go out and get invested and come back. But we're also building this region as a center of excellence for the blue economy. And so if we know that companies want to come here, get expertise, see that there's attention being paid, that local ports and local associations are paying attention in the blue economy, and then they go back and build their company in Texas, like, that's okay. Folks are still coming to us and see this region and the expertise in this region as a place to come. That will eventually drive more jobs and more investment here as well. So that's another kind of local and global tension that we're feeling as we're starting to build ecosystems. We want to support the folks in Boston to grow and do well. Their angel investors are going to come take a look at our companies too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, you and I and Shelley had that same kind of conversation when we first met 3 or 4 years ago. Just how do you navigate that? And there always is going to be that tension, but also you're building that institutional knowledge. When I think about a program that we're actually crafting right now with our partners Altasea for a place-based program, part of what will make the local program grow faster is the fact that Canadian companies or Singapore companies or companies from the Northwest or aquaculture experts from Baja all feed that intellectual capital that comes into it. So you can't, isolate one from the other. But yeah, it's sometimes pretty hard to sort of quantify and justify the numbers when it's coming from a central government or a state agency. And that's why we set up as a private corporation. So we just try to skirt that.
No, that's really interesting. And the question that came up, Andres, when you were speaking, from one of our startup pitch night entrepreneurs you would have seen recently, Anne, from Casey. He's asked about a comment you made, Andres. You said there's a missing piece for a lot of companies to get them ready for investment. So can we identify what that missing piece is and maybe what type of metrics you're tracking to be able to facilitate that?
Okay, so I think we're talking about what usually happens in the innovation ecosystem is great ideas and how to translate them into market-ready and financially, savvy investment opportunities. And it's just basically we've had this constant communication between academia and the science world, and how to speak the same language as economic developers, investors, and it's it takes time. It's sometimes it's as easy as a simple course on how to be market ready and how to present companies to investors, and it's not just high impact investors. It's simply local investors that might be interested in supporting your idea with some seed capital. And I'm actually putting together a very small but hopefully very impactful capital fund that is only, we've seen very great ideas halted and just stopped on the tracks because they don't have $500 to apply for a loan, or $500 to register for a competition somewhere in the world. And it's mostly because we've noticed that the language they're speaking doesn't translate into practical and general public solutions. So it's that. It's simple. I've noticed that it comes down to as simple as speaking the same language sometimes. And what we've done is we actually our cluster, most of the board, we took a course on global. It was global innovation cluster management or something like that. And it opened our eyes. We had a lot of structure. We have a lot of new tools that we can use to kind of help educate not only the innovators and the smart people, but also how to educate investors on what they can expect as return. The cool thing about this is that there is a big part of the investment world that is not looking, on ROIs. They're looking on being impactful and being a part of the smart, responsible economy that's being built around the economy. So it's what I meant. It was mostly that having investment-ready, market-ready companies to show the world, and it's basically just a little bit of education.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And it's hard not to talk about investment and then not bring you into the conversation, Greg, because earlier this year you guys announced a $60 million raise, probably one of the largest in the seafood side of things. Can you tell us what makes a company like Blue Nalu attractive to those type of investors? And then is that formula widely repeatable across the blue economy?
Yeah, Kyle, maybe just a bit more context for the team and for all that are watching. So in this whole alt protein category, there's about 70 companies globally doing some sort of a cell cultured food. And that spans beef, poultry, pork, seafood. We happen to be global leaders in the seafood category, but also leather products, foie gras. If it comes from an animal, you can anticipate that there are investors very interested in pursuing some products in that space. We started in 2018. We had the largest seed round at the time for cell cultured food products. Our A round, that was 4.5. Our A round was 20 million. That was announced in early of 2020. That was the largest A round at the time for cell cultured food products. And then most recently, as you referenced, our $60 million convertible note financing we announced in January this year. And that's really used to finish the refurbishments and tenant improvements of a 40,000 square foot pilot scale production facility, which we're very excited about. Your question about are there investors? Absolutely. It's about, and unfortunately, the ability to attend conferences is so important, particularly for startups who are trying to meet people and meet investors. It's up to the organizers of those conferences to bring investors to that. So Andres, to your point, educating the investment community about these opportunities that do exist is critical. So I feel for those individuals that are unable to attend conference right now due to the pandemic. I think that'll come back. What I've seen though is there are, growing pockets of interest in sustainability when it comes to ocean, and all the systems that Anne and others have talked about. It's all integrated. So whether it's food, energy, supply chain, distribution, or any part that touches any of those industries, there are investors that are looking to find the next big tech, the next big innovation. That's why we've been successful of attracting over 40 investors from a dozen countries and representing Asia, Europe, Middle East, North America, and South America. There's just a huge appetite. The UN also plays a role. They're really expanding interest on the sustainable development goals. Ocean has, the UN would be the first to acknowledge that ocean SDG 14, life below water, has received to date the least amount of attention. But I think that's also going to change, especially as some of these impact investors, non-dilutive investors, and the bond markets too. So one of our investors is Thai Union. They're the third largest seafood company in the world, based out of Thailand. They came in the last financing round as well, partly because they recognize there's just not enough seafood to feed growing populations. But Thai Union also just recently announced a $400 million blue bond, which is a massive opportunity. So it's about identifying the opportunity. What is the market? What are the metrics for success that either achieve a financial return or a sustainable benefit? And then finding those investors that are willing to support that effort. And then you have to have third-party certification, third-party credibility. You have to tell the story. You have to actually execute on your plans. But I think what we're going to see is more blue bonds for various sectors, more investors getting into the space, especially as the planet starts to realize we need to decarbonize our environment and think about ways that we can do things differently. And that's what is so excited about the ocean technology space. This community that everybody on this call has helped assemble, they are the brightest minds. They are looking forward, not just next year, but decades down the road. What are the solutions that are needed to address the largest ecosystem on our planet that we call ocean? And so, I'm just so excited and honestly inspired by this group because, we are developing those solutions. We are preparing the planet and our communities and our neighborhoods, our families, our politicians for what the next 20, 30 years looks like.
Can I do, so along those lines about conferences, what you're saying, about all these different ways of investors, impact investors, blue bonds, blended financing, that is really kind of coming into, coalescing in conversations on this platform Clubhouse that is still in beta and has been around, right? You're shaking your head, Andres. Kyle, you guys are doing it. Those conversations are heating up so quickly around ocean, and the ability. I mean, literally, I've been on conversations with folks from World Bank, UN, heads of SDG 14, entrepreneurs, impact investors, foundation people, and private, family offices that I never would have had access to before so easily in one room, having exactly that kind of conversation. I think that's going to continue to this, it's up to us. It's up to every one of us that are doing this work in this to just take all that energy and put it towards ocean solutions.
If I may, we've been fortunate enough to actually, go to several conferences in the last 5 years, and everything from, the World Ocean Summit to, the Economist event that they put every year. That's, pretty big. And I've seen a really big change on the type of people that attend these events. At first, it was basically a lot of, the science world and big companies trying to kind of be socially responsible, sustainably, and lately there's been a lot of interest by younger generations, by companies looking to create, interesting technology. And from the get-go, since I'm not from the science world, I always kind of, say this to my academia environment here in Baja, and I've said it at some high-level meetings, is that what was needed, and it's been getting better, is the marketing around the blue tech, blue economy, and I used to use a word that was not really good, make it sexy, make it enticing, but it is something along the line, it's the new frontier, it's the 1950s space, economy, the final frontier, and it is amazing how the level of investment has been very quickly increasing. It is, the value of, the economic part of it, the value of the economy, of the blue economy, is so huge that it is inevitable that much more attention is gonna look towards the ocean. And I'm very happy, for example, that UN is taking a very important role in this, and also, let's not forget, we just basically began the decade of ocean science. So now we have a lot of the science or research centers really focusing on that, because for them it opens up a lot more funding, since they align on the global scale. So I think the academic world, the finance world, my wife is very much involved in the blue economy world, because she works in sales and marketing for Pacifico Aquaculture, one of the largest aquaculture companies in the world, striped sea bass, and I've seen the importance of marketing and sales for that sector. It is amazing how it's been slowly transitioning from very artisanal, very mom and pop, family investment, towards really structured, well-financed operations. So I do think that it is becoming more professional, more structured, and the marketing behind it is gonna. I think in the next 5 years we're gonna see a lot more, big impact people being involved in the blue world, and I think we need to be ready. I mean, we need to set some rules. We need to be. I know there's some sustainable accounting rules that we need to start to apply to all the companies, and we need to be really respectful and very focused on keeping it sustainable. I think there's no other way, and I know it's just being so cool to see that the marketing side of everything, the making it very attractive is slowly catching on.
And very interesting. One of the things that we haven't mentioned yet is, and they're a big part of the ecosystem on this, is government, both state, provincial, and federally as well. And then just recently with the new administration in the U.S., you've seen a renewed focus from the Biden administration, like doubling offshore wind capacity. Joshua, your experience, you've been working in the governor's at Washington. What can groups like Maritime Blue do to help influence some of those decision-making processes at the federal and the state and provincial level?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think some of Andreas's comments were starting to lead me thinking about that some more as well, in terms of the level of attention that's now being paid. So we've been working closely. Our federal partners have been very important to the growth of Maritime Blue, whether it's Brown projects, working with the national labs. Of course, NOAA has been leading a significant amount of work, and they released kind of at least somewhat of a strategy on the blue economy. But then we're seeing small offices like within the Department of Energy, the Water Power Technology Office, relatively smaller office, understands the growth opportunity around the blue economy broadly, not just for wave and tidal energy. What we're seeing is the blue economy in the ocean is not just Department of Energy. It's not just it's not just NOAA or the Environmental Protection Agency or Department of Transportation's MARAD. But there are very few conversations happening across the various federal agencies. There have not yet been real mechanisms for our largest R&D agencies, like the Department of Energy, to have a close idea of where industry is going. Let's talk about maritime decarbonization. What is the fuel of the future for deep sea? Are our federal spaces focused on ammonia, but industry is moving towards hydrogen? How do we make sure that there's alignment across those things? And that there's somebody paying attention, right, to help the federal agencies support one another. We're starting to see that now. The Department of Energy and Economic Development Administration partnered on a grant opportunity to support operations of blue tech cluster organizations around the country. There are now 7 of us that have specific operational funding, and we can build a cohort and support the growth of that. We're seeing NOAA and Department of Energy and the national labs partner on a project working on with Anne, the Ocean Observation Prize, right? So we're now starting to see the various agencies. MARAD is actually having conversations with the Department of Energy on the fuel of the future, right? You got whole offices working on energy storage for cars, but who's paying attention to boats at all, right? Everybody thinks it's somebody else's idea and responsibility. We're starting to see that integration now, and cluster organizations, or those of us who work in this innovation space, we can share. Not only do we give those federal agencies opportunities to make their dollars and their work really efficient, because we bring in that triple and quadruple helix, but we can test where their R&D goes. We can share where industry is starting to move, or the trends we're seeing in investment and private investment that, of course, they'd like to see to leverage their public dollars. And that happens at the state level, and it's certainly now starting to happen at the federal level. On any given day, we're having weekly meetings with our federal partners right now to ensure that there is eyes and views and connection points across at least the U.S. federal government.
How can the cluster building organizations, are they going to educate kind of in the same way they maybe would with investors or different organizations like workforce development? And what are kind of the pain points that they're going to government with to try to solve, open that up to everyone?
I can let others jump in too, but I think some of the pain points I think really is how to leverage dollars. There is, President Biden in some speech said we're going to spend $2 trillion on the clean energy future and the infrastructure of the future. And we may have those dollars, but we don't necessarily have the the mechanisms in place to distribute $2 trillion in short order, there's a recognition that, of course, we're going to have to leverage private dollars to do that work, right? Whether it's port infrastructure, major capital investments, or supporting R&D to commercialize new technology, we're going to have to leverage private dollars. And those of us working in this innovation ecosystem are already doing that work and have those relationships in order to leverage those dollars efficiently. I think that's an important place where we can immediately add value.
In terms of pain point, it's really, when we look at this sort of systems thinking and cross-agency sector and policy and academia and so on, a big pain point is really just simply having one group understand the other group and the language of the other group. One of the an initiative that I'm working with is a group called Ocean Visions, and it's a consortium of many research institutions and universities across the U.S., from MIT to Georgia Tech to Stanford and Smithsonian and Scripps. And it's really to just help kind of get solutions out of academia and into the market. And just kind of when I was at a summit in San Diego, well, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whatever, when we could, just the language of the entrepreneur speak versus academia speak, or it might as well be Spanish and English, right? And when you start going policy, same thing, right? Or you talk impact investors versus a VC. So it's just finding that commonality and thread and sort of looking, one step to the group next to you. And if we can those pains, we're just going to resolve.
Yeah, and Kyle, I can maybe chime into that question too. We at Blue Nalu, we recently identified, okay, we're making this, totally different production method of seafood. How do we ultimately get it to commerce? Well, we have to figure out how are we going to distribute that and how are we going to package that. And we want to be a good company, so we want to try to avoid fossil fuels as much as possible. So I put it out, and you responded, Kyle. You said, "Oh, I've got a company that could be a possible solution for Blue Nalu in our packaging needs." Clusters become the incubators of innovation and the finders of technology, the engine of entrepreneurship. And by having a global network, everybody, saying the same language, swimming in the same lane, finding those technologies and plugging those into, supply chains or distribution methods or any kind of solution is absolutely critical. So there's a very real benefit to blue tech clusters.
No, great point, Andres.
If I may, also, I think that also spreading the word to other industries, the shipping industry, manufacturing industry, they might identify several other ideas that can help the blue economy. I think that it has to spread out. We've been getting a lot of feedback from companies, the textile companies, t-shirt companies, and they want to go into the blue tech world for sustainable materials and responsible materials and new inks they can use to kind of print t-shirts and stuff like that, ocean-based inks, which is unheard of for me here in Ensenada. And one thing that we should also kind of start to look at is the commitments the large companies are making at the global scale. For example, Joshua, you were speaking about the energy department and how it has to relate to the port authority because industry is saying one thing. We saw that in Paris. I remember the cruise ship industry was saying that they will stop using ports that are not using sustainable energy resources. So, my job as the only, basically the only Mexican person there is to come back here and say like, hey, Mexican ports, you need to start looking at this, investing in infrastructure, because, then the two largest, ocean industry that we in Mexico are, logistics and tourism. They'll stop coming here if we don't, invest in this. So now you have to go to high-level politicians to kind of look at this and kind of educate them on what is needed and why it's needed. So I think participating in these events, either virtually or physically, is just paying attention to these. It might be an insignificant comment to some people, but for some of us, it's a very important idea. It's a very important message that we have to come back and kind of articulate to our decision policymakers. I just think that it's a very, very encouraging time right now. And for here in Mexico, I hate politics in general, honestly, but we have to talk about politics and politicians when we're talking about, the blue economy. So here in Mexico, we've recently had it's a different kind of federal government. It's just like that. Let's say we're the U.S. 2 years back. So the focus on science, academia, research, and the ocean is not there right now. But the private sector can be very persuasive if it organizes well enough. So what we're looking into as we're a small organization here in Ensenada. It's a small city in Baja, but we are basically educating and bringing people to Ensenada and, having them have a good time and understanding the value of the ocean, and then going into Mexico City or Washington and trying to kind of spread the word. So I think there's a need for higher impact people here in Mexico. But I think when we start working together, Anne and Joshua, and we start bringing attention towards this area in Baja, I think it's going to be very important. And I do see Mexico, Ensenada, as a pretty cool kind of testing site, pilot, testing site for U.S. Canadian companies that might not be able to do that in the U.S. And it's kind of a growing point here, and then you can kind of open your market from here. So I think we can all lend a hand, and thank you for the opportunity.
Especially attractive to Canadian companies in January or February.
Yes.
So I see we're out of time. But
wait to really continue.
Yeah, I think if you guys are okay with people reaching out to you on LinkedIn, is that okay with everyone? Then if they want to continue the conversation, send you a few notes. I would encourage them to do that. But before we go, I just want to say a few things. We're now attracting companies for demonstrators for Demo Day. So June 8th and 10th at Cove, we're planning to have some of the most interesting new ocean tech here at Cove. You'll be able to watch it live. You can learn more information at coveocean.com/events, or send me a note at info@coveocean.com. And then next month, for April, we have an exciting guest for the next Ocean Connector, Jonathan White. He's a retired United States Navy Admiral, currently the CEO and president of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership, and also a member of the Center for Climate and Securities Advisory Board. So you can watch that on Thursday, April 15th, same time. And you can find more information again at coveocean.com/events. And I'd like to take the opportunity now to thank all of our guests. I think that was a great conversation. We could probably win it for another hour, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.